It's my privilege to introduce Stephen J. Lund, who is the Executive Chairman of the Board of Directors at Nu Skin Enterprises, a Provo-based consumer products company utilizing the direct selling channel of distribution. Nu Skin was founded in 1984. I remember that as a Provo resident myself. Was there as Nu Skin was growing and expanding and became a driving force in the valley here. Nu Skin operates now in 55 different companies and has annual sales of over $2 billion. Mr. Lund has been with Nu Skin since 1984 and served as president and CEO from 1996 to 2003, at which point he took a small break to serve as an LDS mission president in Atlanta, Georgia. He holds a bachelor's degree in communications with a minor in philosophy from Brigham Young University, where he also earned a law degree from the J. Reuben Clark School of Law. He's a member of the Utah and Arizona Bar Associations. Steve has served twice here at Utah Valley University as the chairman of the Board of Trustees, following appointment by Governor Herbert and confirmation by the legislature. He also serves now on the State Board of Regents. Most recently, and we thank him for this, Steve co-chaired the new presidential search, which resulted in our hiring, which we're all excited about, for our new president, President Astrid Tuminez, who will replace President Holland later on this summer. Mr. Lund grew up in Santa Rosa and Long Beach, California. He served an LDS mission in the Netherlands Amsterdam mission. Following his mission, he served 3 years in the U.S. Army. He's married to the former Kathleen Kirk of Tooele, Utah. They have 4 children and 9 grandchildren. We welcome Steve Lund.
Well, thanks, Jacob, and thank you all for coming here. I don't know you personally, but I know something about every one of you. I know that you don't have time to be sitting here when you're right in the middle of finals and doing things. I was so impressed to turn around and look around and see how many of you were here, given the pressures of your day, until I was illuminated by the opening presentation that you're doing this for credit. So I'm apparently the only thing standing between you and finishing this course. So we'll try to make it be productive. I've been asked today to talk about leadership. I sat in participated in a strategic planning session once with a renowned organizational behavior professor from Purdue who's taught around a PhD. His name's David Bednar. And before question-answer periods, he tends to say, you know, whenever you get an opportunity to ask anybody a question, you should stop and think, what is this person uniquely qualified to talk about? What has their life's experience uniquely qualified them to do? And then talk to them about that. You can discuss the weather with anybody, but everybody's been places and done things that can inform your life if you just ask the right question. And so in thinking about how to address the subject of leadership, I thought maybe there are a lot of people around, probably people in this room, who are better qualified to talk about the theoretics of leadership, but maybe I could take you through some of the career decisions that involved bold leadership that we at Nu Skin have been involved in to help change the course of our path. A few weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, I think, I was standing at the battlefield of Gettysburg with President Matthew Holland here and some colleagues. We were out there on a constitutional studies trip, and he took us to the Little Round Top Mountain. Now, some of you know Civil War history, and most of you are like me who only know headlines. But this was a determinative battle in the Civil War. The South had been winning all of the battles. They had headed up into the north to try to strike a decisive victory in Washington, D.C., and just outside of Washington, a couple of hours by bus, they collided with the Union troops in this little town of Gettysburg. The Union troops are I've lost a vocabulary word, arrayed along a ridge top that extended a couple of miles. The Southern troops were down below at the bottom of the ridge. like let's use this as, let's say this is the Battle of Gettysburg. The northern troops are up there and the southern troops, General Lee, are down here. Out at the end of the ranks of northern troops is this little hilltop called Little Round Top, and there was a little regiment of the 20th Maine Regiment, a couple of hundred soldiers parked up there, tasked with keeping the South, as they engaged in this battle, from taking that side, which would allow them to come across the northern emplacements from behind and from the side, and they would be able to quickly shell with cannon and with infantry come sweep around the side, and I guess that's bad if you're a soldier to get swept around the side of. So Chamberlain was told, you got to hold this at all costs. So in the middle of the battle, he became aware of two things. One was he couldn't lose that hilltop at any cost, and secondly, he became aware that they were down to their last bullets. They were out of ammunition, and the South was just coming up in tears, rushing their position. And so Chamberlain made a decision and told everybody, okay, fix your bayonets, and then when you shoot your last round, when the last round is shot, we're going to go over the top of our protective barricade here, and we're just going to rush them with bayonets and just do the best we can. And that's where the battle will end. And so it played out just like that. The last shot was fired, and everybody was electrified by this Lieutenant Colonel Chamberlain, who was a humanities professor from a university or a college up in Maine. He shouts this horrifying battle cry and hurtles over the barricade into the face of this onrushing force. The rest of his regiment goes across too. They've got bayonets, and as they rush, screaming their screams and with great enthusiasm heading toward the south, they so unnerved the southern troops that hundreds of them dropped their weapons and surrendered, and the rest of them turned around and ran back down the hill for cover. And the North didn't have a single bullet left. And so it's one of the great examples that gets quoted or cited of leadership in exigent circumstances where, great people do great things that get other people to do great things that ultimately ended up turning the course of a war. Like Chamberlain, any leader is somebody who gets things done with the tools at hand. You don't always have the tools that you want, but leaders find possibilities in the assets that are available to them. One of those assets is your company's brand. And that's sort of where I thought I would focus. I had our corporate media people go through our backlogs and find some kind of signposts of some important branding decisions that we've made across our 34-year history that has allowed us to reinvent ourselves in the face of adversity. Now these situations that I'm going to describe to you are nothing like, charging over the barricades and facing down the opponents with bayonets. But I will tell you that when you're sitting in a quiet place making decisions that are existential in nature, that affect the lives of thousands or tens of thousands, or in our case, hundreds of thousands of families' incomes, it feels a little bit like that, where there's much on the line. And so clear thinking needs to prevail in those kinds of settings. And in times like those, when things are changing for the worst, and you need to choose between various options to make a difference, having a clear head and living a good life in order to be able to access your best angels becomes a valuable thing. A rudder on a sailboat is kind of an interesting analogy of a brand. You might recognize this old device. This sailboat is called a Hobie Cat. This is kind of sailing for dummies. Anybody can rent one of these things at a resort someplace and have at least a 50% chance of ever making it back alive. They're that intuitive, because you just, there's a little telltale up on the top that tells you which way the wind's blowing. And if the wind's behind you, you loosen the cord on that sail and it'll fill up with air and you'll sail out across the water. If you come back and find yourself at an angle to the wind, then you tighten the sail up and it will create an airfoil like an airplane wing, and you can actually go against a sidewards wind. The problem you have is when you find yourself heading into a dead zone. So if your ship is going upwards here and the wind is coming straight towards you, you know, the wind of commerce, the social media buzz, the purchasing habits of your community are blowing past you without any without paying you any mind. Well, your sail is just sitting straight against that wind and you go nowhere. And so you have to get out of that dead zone in order to start getting momentum. And so you can see that he's holding a little crossbar there that's connected to 2 rudders on the back of the boat. On this particular boat, it's small enough that when you're caught in that dead zone, you can actually just pull those rudders to the side and then jiggle them back and forth, and they'll propel the boat a little bit in a rotational direction until you start to catch a wind, and then suddenly you'll hear a snap of the sails as it catches that little side wind, and you're up and running. Well, what I want to talk to you today is about how we have used our brand in order to jigger the ship of state around to a place where we could start going when we maybe were becalmed for a moment. Our company started here in Provo, Utah. We're a college story. Some BYU college friends got together and developed a product idea and a marketing idea and a spiel, a presentation, and it had promise, and it actually got some early traction. The product story was based upon new technology that had been made available as certain ingredients that had been locked into the pharmaceutical world found themselves on the GRAS list, the generally regarded as safe list, which meant that they'd been used enough and tested enough that the Food and Drug Administrators felt confident that those could be used over the counter and by anybody without so they could gain the benefit without being harmed by them. And so we put together a constellation of these new ingredients and eliminated some ingredients that they were better than and created a truly state-of-the-art product line. We ended up with the brand name Nu Skin. None of us ever liked this brand, but we started telling the story and had products that started to move, and it all came together rather quickly, and we had to make a quick decision. And after we ruled out a whole bunch of better names that we couldn't protect because either they were already in the marketplace or were confusingly similar to somebody else's brand or were simply unprotectable for some other reason, this was our the best name we had on our long list, and so we just had to move forward and chose this name. But it became a problem down the road. So our problem pertained to this slide. Just because you say that you're a world-class cosmetics company providing state-of-the-art, best-of-class products to the world doesn't mean that the world is going to believe it. You have to put some substance behind those claims. So branding is the art of aligning what you want people to think about your company with what people actually do think about your company. And so there are certain things that one can do in order to build a brand. Your brand is simply, this is another way of saying the same thing, whatever your customers say it is. And so how do you influence somebody to think about you and your brand and therefore your products in the way that you want them to? I just described to you our sales proposition, and that was world-class, cutting-edge, state-of-the-art products based upon late-breaking technologies. We did a number of things. One of them is we joined the Direct Selling Association. This is a organization of other direct sellers. You've heard of Avon and Amway and Mary Kay and those other companies 50 years ago. They got together to try to deal with issues of common interest in order to create a lobbying, legislative effort in order to protect the marketplace for this area. They also had a code of ethics in place that if you're in compliance with, gave you legislative cover, regulatory cover, but also gave you confidence that your compensation plan was going to be consistent with not just law, but with morality, that you're going to be treating people fairly. Frankly, I just moved over there because there's a photographer here who wanted to get a picture of me in front of that picture so we could send it to DSA to say we're still on board, we're still friends. Mission accomplished? Are we good? Okay, good. I know how important that was for you to know. Who knows who that was? Well, it said, didn't it? What's Bill Bixby famous for? He was the original Incredible Hulk. That's right. We went out and found a little video production company. They went down and tracked Bill Bixby down in front of his mailbox. It was a true story. And asked him if he would shoot this little, let us shoot this little video. And he did about, 2 minutes of video behind a kind of a documentary style brochure, video brochure of our company that talked about what I was just telling you about, these late-breaking ingredients and these high levels of science and so forth. And so that video began to encourage people that maybe we were more than just talk. We would hold conventions and invite people into the Delta Center at the Salt Palace at the time and have world leaders come and talk to us about the issues of the day and about free enterprise in general.
Ronald Reagan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What we were trying to do is get over the fact that we were trying to posture ourselves in the public eye as being a world-class cosmetic company, but we lived in Provo, Utah. One of our first branding exercises was when we were brand new and hadn't sold our first bottle of stuff yet. Blake Roney, my partner and the founder here, went to Pleasant Grove and got a post office box in Pleasant Grove as our mailing address because he felt like Pleasant Grove had more of a cosmetic-y kind of a feel to it than Provo. And so every morning for about 2 years, somebody would have to drive to Pleasant Grove to get our mail and bring it back again. Until finally we decided we'd outgrown that need and started putting Provo on our product labels.
Thank you all very much. Blake, thank you, sir.
There's Barbara.
Thank you.
We had her come separately, we had him come separately, and then we got them both to come together once.
Thank you very, very much.
You're most welcome. Now we ran into another problem. We went through an initial burst of growth, and you can see we were drawing lots of people and our sales were growing, but we had a horrible attrition rate, especially among men. And when we would talk to men, they would say, I love your company, and I like you guys fine, and I even like your products. But what attracts me here is the quality of your business opportunity. I like selling, and I like training people to sell, and I'm good at that, but I just can't get comfortable selling shampoo for a living. I'm just never going to be a great cosmetic salesperson, and so I'm going to move on and sell something else. And so we tried to figure out how to capture, and at the initially half of our distributor force were men, and they were quite good at it. They just weren't happy doing it, and so we really needed to extend our brand, our product offering, to include products that men could more comfortably sell. The logical extension of our brand, of our channel, would have been to introduce nutritional products into that world. But remember, our silly brand is Nu Skin. So how do you get somebody to believe that you, just because you do, maybe they believe that you sell world-class cosmetic products, how are you going to get them to believe that you can sell nutritional products and car tires and refrigerators, with the same competency? It's a tough sell. So here was our reaction to that. We developed another brand that we sold alongside of Nu Skin called IDN, Interior Design Nutritionals, beauty from the inside out. And our pitch was that you can't build good skin, hair, and nails in a bad factory. And so by improving the quality of input, of nutrition going in, your hair is going to be more lustrous, your eyes are going to be brighter, your teeth are going to be shinier, and your skin is going to be healthy. Fortunately, these were all true principles. And so by using this bridge brand to take us from Nu Skin to the nutritional world, we were able to start getting some traction. But a brand by itself, or a logo by itself, does not a brand make. And so we had to do some other things in order to build an independent story around this new division that we had created of nutrition. We developed a pretty compelling story around our skincare products, that we had great science and great research and great products that were different and better than whatever else you were already using. We needed to do that same thing over here on the nutritional support side. And so we did some branding things. We put together an amazing group of athletes that we called Team IDN, with Florence Griffith Joyner as kind of the captain of that team. None of you know who she is, of course, because this was back in the late 1990s. She was the most prominent athlete in that year's Olympics, and won gold medals, and she's a delightful human being. So she and some other, Dan Jansen, do you remember him at all? He's a speed skater, an amazing story. He was the fastest speed skater in the world, won all the World Cups and so forth, and he kept showing up at twice he showed up at the Olympics and fell in the finals, just from some fluke thing. And then finally at the finals, he shows up for his gold medal race, and 10 minutes before the race, he got a phone call. His sister had just died of cancer. And so he went in heartbroken, but still managed to win the gold medal. So he had a tremendous story. And these folks were able to support our brand by saying, I use these products, and these are the reasons that nutrition matters to an athlete, and it'll matter to you too. Let's see if I can. We branded our building. This building is sort of an interesting story all by itself. We're a company in Provo, Utah, trying to project itself as having stature in the cosmetic world. In the trade journals and so forth, they were actually making fun of us because we were actually making waves and selling a lot of product and doing some really innovative things. And so, but it wasn't unusual to have something show up in a magazine that say, and this from Provo, Utah, that mega powerhouse of cosmetic industry, or whatever. So we were all pretty young. We were in our 20s and early 30s during this period of time, but we looked like we were 12 and 16 kind of a thing. I had braces at the time. It was, and so, the question that many people had was, fine, you've got a good product and stuff, but we've seen companies like yours come and go. What makes you think, why should I think you have any staying power? And so one of the things we did was we built a building that looked like a bank with glass and granite and steel and all of the firm fixtures that when you walked into it spoke stability to the world. And that was very helpful. By putting those big appliques on the outside as we approached the 2002 Olympics with our team IDN players, we began to build some other assets. Well, let's just see what we got next. I was hoping it would be that one. Another thing that we did was, again, we're trying to build a story. We're trying to backfill truth behind our story that we had world-class research and world-class capabilities. we went out and found a pharmaceutical company called Pharmanex. This was a company that was built by some pharmaceutical scientists that had come out of the Mercks and Hoffmann La Roches of the world, Asians typically, who had started in China or Taiwan or Malaysia, as Dr. Cheng here started out. They would end up at Western universities, get PhDs, and end up working in research at these pharma companies. But when they get together at pharma conferences, they would find themselves in a corner talking about, you know, how's your career going? And they would say, well, I wanted to change the world by improved nutrition, and instead I'm spending all my time trying to figure out new claims for old drugs, and I'm kind of bored with that. And together they decided that they should start a company. They went out and found some funding and built a company taking Western pharmaceutical knowledge to the Chinese pharmacopoeia. The Chinese had been the great herbologists of the ages and had a whole bunch of stuff that they had studied and used that had been long demonstrated had pharmacological activity, but that was also safe and effective. But nobody had ever stopped to figure out what effective dosage rates would be for these products, what all they would do, where in the plant the pharmacologically active molecules resided. Was it in the seeds or in the flowers or in the stems or in the roots? And so they got together and did all that work and figured out how that they could stabilize and make consistent from pill to pill and bottle to bottle the efficacious molecules that were present in these products. And so they built out a great product line, and they got them planted in 39,000 stores in Walgreens, and in every drugstore that you see around had these products. But their problem was that people would walk in and see that wall of vitamin products, and these products were by far different and better than anything else on the wall because of this pharmaceutical grade science that they had standing behind them. But nobody could tell. They had no way to tell that story. And so people were making decisions based upon the look of the label, and most importantly, the price points. And these products cost a little more because they had to cost more because of the science and the manufacturing that's going into them. So they were going broke. We bought them and put them into our channel because this is what we do. We tell stories. The way we differentiate ourselves is going out and explaining to people what I just explained to you. And once they understand that, then people are very comfortable paying an extra $1 for the product or whatever it was. We bought this company. We pulled them out of 39,000 stores where they'd been doing business, and within a year had eclipsed their sales in their former place. But more importantly, with the company came over 100 pharmaceutical PhD, MD, PhD level scientists who then allowed us to tell our story very powerfully about the quality of our products and why our brand was believable. That Pharmanex brand, then we bridged from IDN, Interior Design Nutritionals, to Pharmanex, because Pharmanex was quickly growing up to be a more powerful brand. And ultimately, we've eliminated IDN as one of our products. LifePak is one of the products within that array. But our successes here created a new problem for us. Our sales had been pretty evenly divided between cosmetics and nutritional supplements. But the Pharmanex story was so powerful that soon it started to cannibalize our personal care sales. And so we were losing, our company, we're Nu Skin for heaven's sakes, and we were diminishing our Nu Skin sales because of the successes on the other side. So what do you do with that brand? And you can anticipate how our sales force complexion was changing with that change. What do you suppose was happening to the women who'd been, half of our sales force? There are lots of women who are interested in sports nutrition, but it was a different complexion and sometimes different ladies. And so our company started to skew towards men. There's nothing good about that equation. And so we started struggling with what do we do about this? So we decided we needed to rebrand Nu Skin and do some things to bring it back front and center. And we revived the brand, the the logos, the look, the packaging experience was improved. And we hired a supermodel. Christy followed us all around the world and told the story about Nu Skin for the next couple of years, and brought a new level of cachet to our personal care line, which then began to grow those sales so that it kind of caught up to where, today, at year 34 of our history, we've still got a pretty even balance between those two brands as we try to build each using marketing and branding tools that are available to us. As we went international, we needed to start spreading our brand out into international areas. There was a time in Taiwan, which I think is this Taiwan? Let's pretend for a moment. Those of you who know better, just bear with me. This could be Hong Kong or it could be China, I don't know. But anyway, in Taiwan, there was a time when the #1 song on the pop hit parade was a song entitled Lu Xin. Lu Xin is the Chinese translation of Nu Skin, and we hired a pop star over there who wrote a song, and it was so catchy that it was being played on the radio and was being bought by everybody who had no idea what Nu Skin was or what Lu Xin was. This is a fun branding exercise. They had an incentive sales trip in mainland China a couple of years ago and invited people in China to, if they attained certain sales thresholds, they would get a free trip to Sydney. A bunch of them qualified. That many of them qualified, and so we were going to have this little event in the Sydney Opera House. There's no way we couldn't fit inside the Opera House. We did it out here in the courtyard. They have a rule there that you can't attach any branding to the Opera House, and so to make this picture work, we got a skywriter to go up, and in front of all these people, he spelled this out. It was really exciting and fun. In 1996, we took the company public on the New York Stock Exchange. And this was a piece of the video that we used when we went out on our road show to tell our corporate story to analysts who we were trying to get to buy our products. You're going to have to take my word for this.
Everybody, as far as I know, has the desire to look and feel attractive, young and vital, and our products address those very needs.
In 1996, this was really happening music.
I've just been astonished at the degree of effort that this company places on quality.
We're committed to ensuring that our product quality is as high as science and technology can make them.
Well, maybe that's enough of that. Our China business, this is may surprise some of you. It certainly surprises us. Today, our business in mainland communist China is bigger than our business in capital central, the United States of America. We do over $1 billion a year in sales in China alone. And so, in order to do business there, we had to do a few things. We've never been a manufacturer. We had to build manufacturing and manufacture our own products for sale within China. And then we got some very significant tax advantages by being willing to put a regional headquarters there. And so this building here has about the same square footage on that whole campus as does our international headquarters here in Provo, including the new innovation center that we've built there. Nu Skin is now 34 years old and has been faced again and again through the years with the need to rebrand ourselves, as our brand had our products had become a little bit stale, as the marketplace had changed, as new competition arrived in the marketplace. But by using that rudder of our brands and branding strategies, we've been able to do some pretty wonderful things to hold us together. I talked about the original building being built to feel like a bank, where it spoke to security and durability, that we'd be there forever, so that people coming in wouldn't worry about whether they were going to invest a bunch of their time into a company that was going to fall away. That was in about 1990. In 2015, 16, 17, 16, I think, we needed to expand our building, but now our branding needs had changed. The story on the street was, well, yeah, Nu Skin is, a good company, and those guys are fine, but, they are so old school. They're so yesterday. Everything they're doing, is coming out of the 1980s. And, we, the competition who's telling these lies, these diabolical, pathetic lies. No, we're saying, because we're all about today, and we're looking forward, and they're looking back. So when we built onto the building, that new building was designed by the same architects, Jackson and Zawinski, out of Seattle, the same architects that built the Apple Cube in downtown Manhattan. We brought them and told them, we need to put that kind of a statement, that kind of a futuristic, high-tech statement in place here. And so we bridged the two together across First West and put a, $150 million new building in place that we call the Innovation Center, because after all, we're old, but we're innovators, and we're looking forward to the future. So the moral to my little story is that while sometimes leadership is brought forward at times of high duress, and when cannon are going off and when you're standing in the face of existential threats, but more often leadership is required when you're sitting on a still ocean and nobody's saying your name. And both times, both of those situations require the best to come out of a leadership group in order to find a wind that can propel them into the next place. It's our company's ability, and it's not any one of us, certainly hasn't been me, that has provided that leadership, but together there is a collective genius that exists in our company that's allowed us for 30 years to continue to reinvent ourselves and move forward through bold leadership in brand building. Thank you. Now, they've asked if I would invite any questions. I know I've answered all your questions, but maybe there's something askance from this that we might talk about. Anything else you'd like to talk about these last few minutes, 10 minutes or so? Please.
So you guys were brand new in 20 is that when you started asking like Ronald Reagan and these really celebrity people to market your brand for you, or help you market your brand? How did you do that? How did you go that high up when you're starting your business and you're really young?
So she's asking, we started when we were young and small. At what point in time were we able to start approaching the Ronald Reagans and George Bushes, Gerald Fords of the world to come help us brand? I'm going to make up an answer to that, but I think it was still in the late 1980s, early 1990s that we started bringing presidents, and we had Colin Powell, we had Henry Kissinger. Do you know who he is? Of course you know who he is. You're college students, for heaven's sakes. Had a number of the of world leaders that came to these events, starting pretty early on. It turns out you can call a speakers bureau like Washington Speakers Bureau or Walker's Talkers, or there are a number of these, and they'll send you a brochure, and there's a price tag attached to each of them, and if you can afford them, they're delighted to come. They do a little vetting. They want to make sure that they're not selling illegal securities or whatever, but you know, if you're a legitimate company and can afford them. And so I think your real question is, how did you afford them? Well, it was a stretch, you know, early on. But our brand was suffering because we were so soft in so many places. You wouldn't look at us. One of our main distributors, you know, one of our most successful distributors eventually said that he really had to climb some hurdles, because he walked into our little office, which was a little rented office on Freedom Boulevard, Paul Ruffner's building over there, and he said, I thought I had walked into a Boy Scout camp. You know, everybody there looked like they were 10 years old. And, you know, after I talked to them for a while, they seemed smart enough, but, you know, I really had to struggle with, you know, whether they were wise enough to really guide an operation like this. So, you know, we just had some liabilities we overcame, and this is probably not the right answer in this day and age. But at that point in time, people asked the same thing. There must be more going on here than meets the eye, or they couldn't do these kinds of things. Other questions? Sir.
So you spoke about a few different changes or pivots that you made along the way as a company, and change management is hard in any corporation, but with your different model and kind of network of sellers and everything, how did you manage that change and sell the company as a whole and all those distributors on those pivots?
So he's asking the process question. When you initiate a change of brand, or try to cause your brand to stand for something a little different than it did before, how do you sell that, and how do you get people to move forward? And it's just basic salesmanship. You know, it's communication. It was always easy for us, frankly, because we could put our corporate team together and talk through this challenge, and usually, you know, most of our key players were involved in the decision making, you know, and so it was easy to paint the picture. Here's where we are, here's where we need to go, you know, and here's the bridge that we're building that we need to go across together. And we would refine that bridge internally until we had good buy-in internally. And then we would bring in our sales leaders. You know, all of our sales are conducted by independent contractors who don't have any real substantial contract with us. As independent contractors, they can walk away at any given moment. But we would find the leaders, the opinion leaders within that group, and we would bring them in and go through that same process of explaining, you know, where we're going and why we're going there, and why at the end of that bridge was a pot of gold. And once we brought them around, then our word of mouth business would just take over, and those messages would get viralized even before the computer age, you know, one telephone call at a time until people were on board. There was always a little turbulence. And there's always folks who think they've got a better idea, and sometimes they would, and sometimes we would adjust. Sometimes these great ideas came from our field. Somebody would come in having woken up in the night with a great idea that turned out to be the germ of a new initiative that we're moving forward with. So thanks, good question. Other questions? I don't blame you for sitting quietly. You've already got your credit. Right. Please.
So, I remember seeing you involved with the Provo City Center Temple, some of the things that happened there. Obviously, we mentioned in your bio, you left for a few years, did some other kind of service. You're now serving in higher ed and doing these kinds of things. Can you maybe just talk about how some of your earlier life experiences or business experiences have prepared you for these other life experiences you've been a part of these last several years?
Were you able to hear that question? I've been a kind of a fixture here at UVU. I've served on the board of trustees here for 7 years or 8 years or something. 4 of those years I was the chairman here, and I've been invited to, when the Provo City Center Temple was being dedicated, the LDS Church asked me to chair a committee there that put that together. And he's saying, how did my prologue prepare me to do those kinds of things? I think I would back up to, I think every stage of my life has prepared me and will prepare you for those things. My college experience, taught me to write and think, and I won't brag that I can talk. I've already belayed that, but that was heavily influenced by my college education. My LDS mission, taught me to be bold enough that even a shy person from a dirt road in, some little subdivision in California could get up and do things that, he's got no business doing. I spent 3 years in the military, and those military years taught me some disciplines that have been helpful, and leadership principles kind of get instilled in you there that I've carried along the way. Frankly, I never undertake one of these things without coming away feeling like whatever preparation I've done has been too little and too late. And so, we're still learning, and we're all in this together. So, so sometimes the education comes on the spot. You learn in the doing, and I guess if I were going to encourage each of us toward a certain direction, I would say never say no. If you're asked to serve or asked to do, you have the tools to figure out what you need to do, and you gather smart people around you, and there just, it really isn't anything that anybody in a room like this can't go out and do in the world as doors open. Just go through them. Any last question? We're right at our closing. Oh, please.
Early on, it seemed like you had a similar marketing strategy for both ranges of your business. You hired a celebrity or an athlete who had to market that brand for you. How has those, over the 25, 30 years, how has that marketing strategy changed for both businesses?
Yeah, I've told this story in a very simplistic way. So we were doing a lot more things than celebrity endorsements. But you're right that we've migrated a little bit. We really don't use celebrity endorsements anymore. They're too expensive, and they're not celebratory enough. The people that you can get. We're finding that now we're at a different place in our corporate lives where the story that people care about is the product story. And so our products are the stars of our marketing campaigns now. More and more, we're moving into social media marketing as an increasingly important part of what we do. And the stars are those social media faces that go on their little YouTube pages and Facebook pages and tell our story to their friends through social media. So, well, we'll still, bring, bands to the Delta Center to perform at our events and so forth. That's more of a party than it is a marketing exercise. So I'm sorry, there's a lot more detailed answer to that, but we are at our drop dead point here. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I've really enjoyed being with you.